All right. Like I said earlier, it is great to be in God's house. Anybody else excited about that? Amen. Yes. We started a few weeks ago on the book of Esther, and quite honestly, I'm too slow and we didn't get through it, so we're going to have to finish up, all right? I know we're supposed to be on Job today, and according to your schedule, that some of you know my preaching schedule, but as Paul Harvey used to say, and now for the rest of the story. By way of a little bit of a primer, a reminder, if you will, as I look at chapter 1 and just kind of catch you up to date, we'll kind of do a quick overview. Are you ready? Now buckle up, everybody. So we're going to go fast, all right? So it starts out, and there is a picture of King Ahasuerus, which is basically his title. It is King Xerxes. He's ruler over 127 provinces. Basically, he's the most powerful person on the earth at this particular time. He's having a party. And when he throws a party, he throws a great party. He throws a party that is 6 months long. And the purpose of this party is to show off his wealth to all of his generals and the people in there. And he's basically, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get everybody on his side because he wants to go back to Greece because his daddy failed in his attempt to take over Greece. And so he's trying to get everybody on his side. He's like, we're going to raise this massive army, and we're going to go over there and we're going to crush them like bugs. And so he's trying to has this big long party, and during this particular party, it is though that God wanted to begin moving some things into place, and so he says, "Hey, I have the most amazingly beautiful wife. My queen is over the top pretty. I mean, guys, and not only at the end of the 6 month time frame, they have a 1 week long super party, if you will, for the entire town of Susa, where he's living at in his winter cottage. Winter palace is a smaller palace than the other one, all right? And so he has the whole town there. And the last day, he says, guys, I want you to see just how pretty my wife is. And so he says, hey Queen Vashti, would you come in here and just, parade around and show off how good looking you are? And something important happens. She makes a key decision. Could have been fatal, but it wasn't. But a key decision that says, no, I'm not coming. Xerxes is like, what? I'm the king. You're supposed to do whatever I want. And so he's sitting there on this war planning council with all of his buddies. I don't think they're really his friends because, quite honestly, they're just kind of in it for the money of themselves. And so he's there, and he's like, now what do I do, guys? Give me some counsel. Give me some advice as to what I do. And they say, well, basically, you need to cut bait and run. You need to just not ever have her be in your presence again. You need to get a new queen. And he goes, that's a good plan. I like that plan, because he didn't want to kill her because he really liked her. I mean, she's pretty, but he actually liked her. And so he puts her away. She can't be in his presence ever again. Laws of the Medes and the Persians says that if they make a law, the king makes a law, it can never, ever be undone. Okay, good to know. So she can never enter his presence according to the laws of the Medes and Persians. And so we're going to get us a new queen, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then things keep going. They do the war council, finish up. They wind up going over to Greece, making us a massive push into there. And once again, the Persians get their tails kicked. All right? So he comes home a little bit early from the battle, and he's moping and pouting. And his servants are like, hey, why don't you go back? It's been about 4 or 5 years. Why don't you go back and redo that whole plan? We're getting a new queen. Great idea, guys. And so they start a star search, if you will, a big, all throughout the entire nation, finding the most beautiful women, bringing them to the palace, having them have an entire year of having beauty treatments. It's like, oh, this is bubble bath 3.1, all right? I mean, lots of stuff. And so they're finding people. Well, then one particular young lady, her name is Hadassah. She's a Jew. She comes in and she's like, hey, Mordecai, who happens to be kind of daddy figure because her mom and dad passed away, and it's basically her cousin, and he took her in and is treating her like daughter. And you go, did you get the news? And Mordecai, he's just absolutely upset because he does not want his cousin to be in this beauty search. And so he trying to hide her, but he can't. And so she goes, she's a part of that. And matter of fact, she wins the job. She wins Star Search, if you will. My goodness, she's not only over the top beautiful, but she has this sweet, sweet spirit on the inside of her. And everybody loves her. And so she even finds favor with the king. And so she's chosen. And basically this little Jewish girl, teenage girl, is put into the palace to be the queen of the most powerful person on the planet at this particular time. And so she's there and enjoying her new job. Mordecai, her cousin, is always stopping by, staying just outside the gates. And so he happens to hear a couple of the guards saying, let's kill the king. And so Mordecai winds up he hears this, he tells his cousin, Queen Esther, and she tells the king, and the king sends his fact checkers, and they do their thing, like, oh, right on, they really were going to kill me. And so the plot is squashed. And it just kind of winds up being a footnote in history. And so then they go on, and it seems like nothing else really is happening. And then there's a guy that gets to be the number 2 guy. Now, for the Persians, the Persian kings, they had 7 men who could, from the princely provinces, and they could actually come into his presence without being summoned. And they were there, but this guy, he was flush with cash. I mean, he really had, as we say in Honduras, mucho dinero. He has lots of money, all right? So he winds up coming to power, and because King Xerxes is so money hungry, he winds up putting this guy named Haman as his number 2, kind of like the prime minister. Matter of fact, he says, whatever you want to have happen, that's great. I want everybody to bow down to me whenever I go through the village. Excellent, we can do that. We'll make that a law. And so he's walking through, enjoying everybody bowing down to him and all that kind of stuff. And there's one guy's like, that ain't happening. Guess who it is? It's Mordecai. Mordecai's like, I ain't bowing down to anybody. I'll bow down to the king because that's what we have to do, whatever. But I'm not bowing down to that man. I bow down to Jehovah only. That is who I bow down to. And so Mordecai hears about it through his little spy network, if you will, and then there are all this particular group of people, this spy network, they like Mordecai, and they're like, hey, would you just bow down, get over it, bow down. And he's like, nope, ain't gonna do it. I will not do that. And so Haman gets really, really, really mad. I hate you, Mordecai. and it's not just that it's Mordecai. It's like, I hate all the Jews. There's a serious Jew-hating problem there. Anti-Semitism is what we call it now. I got a big name for it. And so Haman begins this plot. How can I get rid of Mordecai without mentioning his name? How can I get rid of my problem for these Jews? They won't bow down to me. So he sets up this idea, and he says, King, I got a deal for you. He's playing let's make a deal. The deal is this. How about there's a group of people that are basically causing rebellion in your kingdom. They're causing, they got laws of their own that they don't want to obey your laws. They want to do all that other stuff. They don't want to follow you as king. And so I say that we go ahead and set a day and a time, and he had been already working and praying about this when he was going to do this. Set a day and set a time whenever we just kind of have the people go ahead and wipe out this particular ethnic group and solve your insurrection, rebellion problem all across your kingdom. And then as a bonus, we'll have everybody who participates in this, then they'll get an opportunity to loot their stuff. If your neighbor is one of these wrong ethnic people, these rebellious people, and you go ahead and you go against your neighbor and you kill them and wipe them out, man, women, and children, all the whole deal. Then you can take their stuff home with you and you can sort through it and keep what you want and sell the rest, whatever. You get to do that. And on top of that, I'm going to sweeten the deal for you, King Xerxes. I'm going to give you the equivalent of 2/3 of what you would normally take in taxes. I'm going to put that in silver right into your royal treasury. Whew. Now, for a greedy king, this is a fantastic deal. I'm not having to pay soldiers to go do this. I'm not having to order all that. I'm just going to let this guy take care of it, and I'm going to get rich from the deal. And so he says, all right, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my ring off my finger, and I'm going to let you use my royal signet ring. You can put that to whatever document you want. Make this happen because this sounds like a great thing for me. And so as he does that, we find in chapter 3 that he makes the proclamation that all the Jews are to be slaughtered. Entire genocide. Now you got to think 127 provinces throughout the entire world at that time. That includes the homeland of Israel. It's everybody. This is a mass extermination of all the Jews. If Satan was wanting to get rid of the Jewish problem, if he's wanting to get rid of the prophecy that happened in Genesis chapter 3 when God the Father says to the serpent in the garden, he says, and you will strike his heel and he will crush your head. If you want to get rid of the snake crushing person, Jesus, we can do that in the front end before he ever gets on planet. We can do this. And so he sends out the proclamation to do all this terrible stuff. As they're going through all that, getting ready, the proclamation goes out in the first month of the year, and it's supposed to happen on the 13th month of the 12th year. So it's like we got almost an entire year to plan and make this thing happen. Well, as it so happens, the proclamation is read in the capital city. Mordecai gets a copy of this, and immediately he starts just tearing his clothes. He starts grabbing ashes, and he throws them on top of him. And for whatever reason, because Queen Esther has some spies of her own throughout, word comes back, he's like, why is my cousin in mourning? Why is he so distraught? It's almost as like somebody in our family has died. In reality, he knows that he's going to die, and all of the Jews in the world are going to die. And so he's in deep grief. And so she's asking back and forth, and finally Mordecai sends her a copy of the edict that came from Haman, and she reads that, and she's like, oh, this is bad news. And Mordecai says, cousin, what I really need for you to do is I need you to go into the king and do something to stop this. Now, at this point, Esther's a little bit on the hesitant side. She says, I can't just walk into the king's presence. You have to be summoned in. And I'm the queen, and I have to be summoned I have to be asked to come into his throne room. What do you mean? Yeah, that's the rules. And if somebody walks in the back door of the throne room and unannounced and uninvited, and the king doesn't point his scepter toward them, off with their head. And I got more bad news for you. King and I are kind of on the outs. It's been 30 days since I've been able to be in his presence. So I'm not really the best person. And Mordecai says, if you don't do something, you're going to die. What do you mean I'm going to die? Don't think that this edict is going to bypass you in the palace. It's going to affect you as well. You're going to die in this as well. So Esther says, all right, cuz here's what we need to do. I'm going to ask you to round up everybody that you know, and I want you to fast, and I want you to pray for 3 days. Now, we're Baptists. We like to feast. We love potlucks. That's what feasting means. It's a great thing. I am not going to disparage that in the slightest. This whole thing of fasting means no eating, no food and drink at this particular point is what she's asking for 3 days. Well, I'm diabetic and I can't do that. Dude, got to provide. I need everybody on board with this. He says, got it. And she says, I'm going to have all my maids and all the people in the palace that are around me, I'm going to have them fast and pray as well. So at the end of, and Mordecai had reminded his cousin, you do realize that you were put in the spot that you were in for such a time as this. God has been weaving the circumstances of history. He is like the hand that is inside of the glove of history, and he is moving his finger. He is moving things, and he is shuffling things. He is arranging things to happen so that he can get what he wants to have happen. He's wanting us to know that he is in charge of everything. All right? We can't undo what God's purpose is. And so as she's saying, all right, pray. So then it comes to her mind, and I'm mostly certain that God has put this into her brain. When you walk into his presence, what I want you to do is I want you to invite him to supper, a banquet. So she makes her hesitant journey into the king's throne room. And God's hand is in this. And he extends his scepter towards her. And she comes in, she kneels, and then he does something that's kind of very out of character for a very greedy man. He says, what do you want? I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. That's a big deal for a greedy man. I'll give you up to half my kingdom. What do you want? I would like for you and the Prime Minister, Haman, to come and be at a banquet that I've prepared. That's it? Yeah, I like food. I'm a king. I like food. And Haman, he's over there doing the happy thing. Ooh, it's just me and the king and Queen Esther. Oh, I have arrived. My life is getting better and better and better. And so they have that meal. And while they're at that meal, King also says, tell you what I'm going to do. I'll give you up to half my kingdom. What do you want? And for whatever reason, the Holy Spirit has not pressed in her mind to ask her real question yet. She says, if I've found favor in your eyes. Yeah, you're the prettiest girl in the kingdom. Yes, you've found favor, and you're so sweet. We love you. Yes, you found favor. What do you want? I would love, if I found favor in your sight, would you please just allow me to have you one more banquet tomorrow, and then I'll let you know. Whew. Happy days, oh happy days, oh happy days. And Mordecai singing, celebrate, woo! I mean, he is really getting it. He's on his way home, and he's feeling good. He's had supper with the king and the queen, and he gets invited and be the only guest of the king and queen tomorrow. Oh, doggy. He was excited. And he's walking outside the palace, and he's walking his way home. And who does he see? Mordecai. I love Bill Bill's over here going. It was probably more like, nope, ain't going to bow. And I'm really ticked off because of that whole eating thing. I know you're behind it. Ain't no way I'm bowing. So Mordecai makes his way home. Instead of being on cloud 9, he's all mad. I mean, he is fit to be tied on the inside. And he goes home and he starts talking to his wife and his family and his friends that are there. And that Mordecai, I got to be with the king and the queen for supper, and I get it tomorrow. And this Mordecai, he won't bow down to me. And they say, why don't you just build some gallows, build a hangman's noose thing, and make it really tall, and have him hung tomorrow. That'll fix him. That'll end your problem. You are so powerful. That'll cure your problem. Yeah, that's a good idea. Go get my carpenters. Go get the guys that know how to do that kind of stuff. Build a big one. I want everybody to see this. And so he does that, and he starts feeling a little better about himself, knowing that he's going to be getting rid of his arch nemesis. No enemy for me. And I get to eat with the king and the queen. This is great. And so, nighttime, and God does more of his laying circumstances on top of circumstances on top of circumstances. Things that have already happened. These plans that are laid in place. You know, it's amazing how God puts things in place and then brings it back around. So anyway, I need to press on. So Mordecai goes to work the next day. No, let me back that up. King, he's getting ready for bed. And then he's going, 1, 2, 3, 20,000, 1, 20,000. I mean, he's counting sheep and he cannot go to sleep. It's like, And so he calls the servant and says, hey, come in here. Why don't you go get the history book? That's some serious dry reading. That'll put me to sleep, all right? And so I don't know how it all happened, if it started a certain book or if the guy just kind of let it flop open and he put his finger at the page, whatever. I don't know how it happened. But he starts reading, and he gets to the part about when there was a plot against him to have him killed, and then Mordecai uncovered that plot, and he told Esther, and Esther told him, and it's like, hey, servant, what does it say that we did for that guy? Well, you did nothing for him. You're just kind of a jerk about the whole thing. I didn't say that, but he said you did nothing. So, like, we need to do something for that guy. So, next morning, we have Haman gets out of bed, and he walks up, and he's like, I'm gonna have Mordecai hanged. It's a good day, it's a good day. And he walks into the king's presence, and he starts having a conversation, and the king says, wait. What would you think would be a fantastic idea? How would you have somebody honored that the king once honored? How would that happen? Well, Mordecai's thinking, he wants to honor me. The day couldn't get any better. You know what I do? I would have some of the king's royal clothes that he's already worn, have them put on him. I would have him sit on one of the king's horses that the king has ridden on. I would have him paraded around through the streets by the most important person that you can find, and have them announce, here's the man. This is what the king does for someone who honors the king. And it's like, oh, yeah. And all this is going on. And he's thinking this is where he's going to be riding a horse today. And the king says, that is a fantastic plan, Mordecai. Or Haman's like, woo, it's going to happen. And he says, why don't you tell Mordecai that this is going to happen for him? Haman's world turned upside down because of one word. Mordecai. I love it. Does anybody anybody else find that fun? Okay, good. I'm not the only one. I tend to geek out about Bible stories, but this is a really good one, all right? So it is. And so here is Mordecai leading the horse around the square. This is what happens for a person who does good stuff for the king and is honored by him. Oh, man, you want to talk about a whipped dog. The thing that he thought was going to happen to him happened to his arch nemesis. That's great. So then he gets done with that. And so it's time for supper. And nobody's been hung yet. I mean, he's not got the chutzpah to even ask about that kind of stuff. So it comes time for supper time. And so Esther lays it all out. King and Haman come in. Esther, what is it you want? Up to half of the kingdom, I will give you whatever you want. Wow. This is the key moment. This is why she has been placed into this position as queen, is for such a time as this. King, what I'd really like is for you to spare my life. And I would love for you to spare the lives of all my people. You see, I got this piece of paper in my pocket. And what happened was, this guy right here, Haman, he wrote this up to try to get rid of me and all my people. According to the laws of the Medes and the Persians, since I'm a Jew, I'm going to die because of this man. Whew, that did not go over well with Xerxes. Number one is because that means that he would lose this woman who's found favor in his eyes, his queen. He loves her. He actually loves her. And on top of that, his number two guy, his right-hand man, is the one who is responsible for wanting to kill his wife. And how could you do that, Haman? You had to have known. He's mad. I mean, there's mad, and then there's really mad, and there's blow your top mad. He's in that blow your top mad thing like, I can't even look at you right now. I got to leave here because I'm fixing to explode. Fixing, that's a southern term, means it's about ready to happen, all right? Fixing up here means you got a car that's broken, you got to fix it, all right? Fix it. He is fixing to explode, and he leaves out of there, and he goes making some laps around his palace garden. And during that particular time, Haman, he's in the palace there in the banquet area with just him and Queen Vashti, and he starts pleading with her, begging for her, like, oh, Esther, please, please, please. And he's grabbing a hold of her feet and the edge of her garment down there. Please, please, don't kill me, don't kill me. And about that time, God has perfect time. About that time, the king walks in and sees him hanging all over her. He's like, you're going to attack my queen right in my own home? Are you nuts? I left here mad, really, really mad, and now you're going to do this over the top. And at that time, one of the servants kind of like, hey, you know that Haman had some gallows built, some hangings just outside. Really? How convenient. And they covered his head, and they took him out immediately, and they hung him on his own gallows. So if that's not enough, then Esther's like, what can we do? King says, we can't undo a law of the Medes and Persians. I can't undo that. Can you figure out a way for us to get around this? So what he winds up doing, he says, all right. Queen Esther advised him, and Mordecai is advising him. And they said, all right, I want you to send out another proclamation that allows the Jews to defend themselves. And if somebody attacks them, they can defend themselves, and then they beat them up. Now they can take their stuff and have them for their own. You know, that might put a little bit of a whoa on some of this. And so then, and then not just on that same day, but the next day, can you give the Jews 2 days to do this? Yeah, I think we can do 2 days. So they make the proclamation that could happen. Now, this edict goes out through everybody hears about it, all this is going on, and then, then the day arrives, and there are fewer people that are interested in attacking the Jews at that point. I mean, there's some greedy people, and they're wanting to get in on it. But there's less people. And matter of fact, it says that there was a bunch of people that became Jews because they didn't want to attack the Jews, and they didn't want to be guilty of cursing. You remember back in Genesis chapter 12? I think it's about verse 2, maybe 2 and 3. God tells Abraham, the father of the Jewish nation, I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to make you amazingly blessed. Your descendants are going to be as numerous as the sand in the seashore. There's going to be more Jews on this planet than there are stars in the sky. You can't even count them all. And on top of that, everybody who blesses you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. There were some people who must have read something, because they didn't want to be on that cursing of the Jews. They wanted to be on the blessing end of things. That's what they really wanted. And so they became Jews. And then, so the Jews at that particular point were saved. Now, I say all of that. I tell you the entire story. And I left out lots of details. You really should go read this. This is a fantastic book. What I want to say is, I can't sum up in one sentence. God began working out the specifics of everything, all these seemingly insignificant details, to bring about the salvation of his people. He did all these things. He had the Persians lose to the Greeks twice. He had Queen Vashti say the words, "Nope, not going to do it." He calls for a star search among the entire nation for a new queen. And then he's got this one young Hadassah, a young Jewish girl who's living with her cousin. And she gets swept up in the thing. This is years in the making. And then she's in the palace and enjoying the good life. And then her cousin hears about a plot which gives her another something in this story that seems insignificant, but it's really important later on. And then she's there, and her life is being threatened. The entire nation of Israel is being threatened. And God has already, throughout multiple years, has set things up so that the right thing can happen for the salvation of his people. God has put a lot of things into your life to line things up, because there will come a time in your life when you'll be in that one spot that for such a time as this type spot. He might have raised you to a position of importance like Esther. He might have placed you at the right place to hear about an assassination attempt. He might place you in a position for something else. And as a matter of fact, Mordecai, he was just taking care of his cousin, his aunt and uncle's daughter. He's just doing that. You don't know how important your place in God's plan really is. But God has brought you to a place so that you can be used by Him to bring glory to His honor and name. Amen. Why did Virginia have to walk into the weight room on that September afternoon at just that particular time? That was the point where I got absolutely enamored with this young lady. How did God put all the people into her life to make her a godly woman and to make her a tremendously accomplished volleyball player, and then gave her something in her mind to bring her to that particular place? Because the school, they didn't want her. She'd been recruited by lots of Division I schools. And she's trying to walk into an NAIA, a Division III, if you will, school. And they're like, we don't need you. And yet she knew she was supposed to be there. She didn't know why. And I didn't know her before, during that time. But God was making things where our paths would cross. Why would God bring all the things into my life, the different situations, to bring me here? It's so that my kids, my second and third children, could meet their mates in this church. Why did we have to go to Arkansas? It was so that we could meet the right people in Arkansas, so that when my son went to Alaska, he could be invited to a home, and this common friend invited somebody who was visiting their brother in Alaska who lived in Arkansas, so that my son could meet his now wife. God works all of these complicated things together to bring Him honor and glory, because it is His purpose, His plan. Thank you. It's time for us to figure out what is our place in life. Our place in life is to say yes to Him, to say yes to Christ. What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? Who do you want me to talk to? It's for His plan and purpose. On the way home from Honduras, I had the privilege of sitting next to an elderly lady named Marina. She's from Spain. She was visiting Honduras because her son was there. And I'm struggling because I don't know the language well at all. I've got 1 year of Duolingo, and not even quite a year left, Duolingo so we're struggling. She knows just a little bit of English, and so we're pooling our ignorance, if you will, trying to communicate. Made a good connection there, but was finally able to give her a Spanish tract. And we kind of went through as best as I could, because, once again, I don't know. Yo no hablo español. I don't know enough Spanish to be able to give a great in-depth presentation. I did talk with her, and she promised that she would read it all the way through when she got home. Before we got off the flight, was able to once again talk with her. Make sure you read that whole thing. Oh, yes, I will. And I prayed for her as best as I could. And then that was from Honduras to Miami. I think that God was able to place that particular tract in her hands as a seed to go to Spain. But it did, what God's work also did was it changed me and helped me realize that I have a serious need to learn Spanish if I'm going to be able to effectively communicate the plan of salvation to someone who doesn't know English. Two things are happening, and I have no idea how that's going to play out in the future, all right? If you're writing this as a book, we can write down all the things that have happened, but the future, we still haven't written that yet. We can't see what is there yet. And so as on the way from Miami to St. Louis, God placed a 20-something couple in the seat next to me. Americans from Kansas. I can talk to people like this. He's a farmer and a seed salesman. She sells insurance. Like, I can do this. Was able to share the plan of salvation with them. Asked her if she had any background. She said, I'm Catholic. Okay. Once again, but as difficult as all that was, it was so much easier than having that language barrier. Was able to give them a tract. Somewhere's in Kansas. Hopefully they'll read that tract. I asked them if they would promise they would do that. And she said, yes, I will. I asked them if they would do 4 things. Read the tract. That they would when she was taking her son through catechism classes, that she would start looking at what the Catholics say about what happens when you die. That she would go to her church or a church 4 weeks in a row. 2 weeks to her church, 2 weeks to his church, a Baptist church. I'll do that. Read that tract. Okay. And I said, and so I prayed for him. Father, I pray that you would bless them financially. I pray that you bless their businesses. I pray that you bless their fields with a mighty harvest as they worship and serve you, as they keep these promises. And so I'm not certain how that's going to play out either. But God has woven our life together in some way, crossed our paths for a specific reason. He's using you to cross paths with somebody else. And maybe you're here today so that you can hear about Jesus Christ. And let me summarize it this way. Jesus Christ wants to forgive you of your sin, the thing that is keeping you from being able to live with him forever and ever in his heaven. He wants to forgive you. He wants to take away that blockage. Jesus Christ wants very much for you to say, please be my boss. Mi jefe, my boss. Please guide me and lead me in the way that you want me to go. And I will be your servant. Please give me the gift of eternal life, because I want not only to live forever and ever in heaven when I die, but I also want to be able to walk with you and enjoy that eternal life even now. Life now. Maybe you're here today and you need very much for that to be your prayer. So if you haven't asked Jesus to be your Savior and your Lord or boss, I'm inviting you to come and talk to myself. We'll have some deacons down here if I'm busy. And maybe you've already made that decision. You need to be baptized. Come talk to me about that. Be baptized. Make that step of obedience. And maybe you've done those things, and maybe you just feel like this is the place where God is calling you to worship and serve. If that's the case, and you want to join our church, come talk with me, and we'll set up a time to talk about that. Whatever it is, you respond as God is leading you.